How do you solve a series of murders committed by an unknown killer in a ghostface mask? How do you properly add up the clues and suspects to figure out who the killer is before the end? What if I said this slasher movie gives you all the clues to solve whodunit long before the killer is revealed? What is up, nerd detectives? We are back once again, putting a pause on the classic Poirot mysteries and solving a murder mystery in the horror genre. So before they go making the next one, let's dig into a great franchise with a lot of memorable moments and kills. I want to prepare you to be able to pick up all the clues the movie is giving you and help you to be able to solve who the killers are before it's revealed at the end. I'm going to take you through how murder mysteries work, all the attacks from the killer, and every clue this movie gave us to help us solve this case. So today we will start with the OG, the one that started it all. It's the 1996 classic satirical horror film.
You're not scared, are you?
Now before we begin to break this all down, let's get to know the rule system of the world we are operating in. See, Scream is a horror movie, more specifically a slasher, but it's also a murder mystery. And murder mysteries operate in a unique way in that you are given all the clues and suspects you need to solve the murder. But often that information is delivered in such a way you question it every chance you get. So glaring clues then become throwaway details you miss. And suspects you're sure have to be the killer then become a red herring, or worse yet, dies. So then you're left back at square one. You feel like you can never trust anything, and like Randy says,
there's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
So let us keep a few things in mind. In murder mysteries, every single detail is important until the end of the movie. So remember it, every line, every location, or even a character's mannerisms can all be clues.
That's the beauty of it all. Simplicity. Besides, if it gets too complicated, you lose your target audience.
Murder mysteries are also dialogue heavy, and within this dialogue we are given more clues, dates, backstories, possible motivations, and information how characters are all connected. Next, in murder mysteries, always remember the villain is someone we have met before and has been given a fair amount of screen time. It's never some supernatural baddie or big villain we've never met and thus could never guess. Remember, it's always someone we know. All this to say, murder mysteries are meant to be solvable. Listen to murder mystery author Anthony Horowitz describe the feeling someone would feel realizing who the killer was at the end of one of his novels.
I always have to play 100% fair with my readers. The first question I ask is not, did you enjoy it, but did you guess it? If they do guess it, I feel a sense of disappointment, but at the same time, they have a right to be able to guess it, because if they can't guess it, then I haven't played fair.
But how do we as nerd detectives solve murder mysteries in the first place? Well, this is where we break out the handy-dandy rules for solving a murder mystery.
Don't you know the rules? What rules? You don't... Jesus Christ, you don't know the rules?
Well, let's go through them one by one. Rule number 1, you have to have suspects. Rule number 2, you have to have clues. Rule number 3, you have to have motivation. Rule number 4, you have to have opportunity. And bonus, rule number 5, you have to have red herrings. We use all of these as part of our algorithm to solve any murder mystery. One more thing to keep in mind about murder mysteries is in all cases, there is always a sleuth or detective character. But in this film and in the franchise, it's not our lead like it is in most books and movies. Instead, the sleuth honor goes to our favorite leading news reporter, Gale Weathers. She is consistently the only one sneakily trying to gather information and put things together, if only slightly before the rest of the characters, and this continues throughout the franchise. Now, I know in most cases we would start from the beginning of a murder and work our way to the end, but in this scenario, we're going to approach this like your favorite detective would and curate theories based off of clues. We are also going to work our way through the murders just in case it's been a while since you've seen the movie. So let's start with the big reveal. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie, I mean, what are you doing with your life? It's damn near 30 years old. Get it together. All that to say, feel free to pause this, watch Scream, and come back. Now, for those of us who have seen it, let us begin. We find out the killers at the end of the film are Billy Loomis and Stu Macher, and the motivation given is
Your slut mother was fucking my father.
And thus Billy's mom ran out on him and his dad.
Paternal abandonment causes serious deviant behavior. Certainly fucked you up. It made you have sex with a psychopath.
Stu, well, I'll let him tell you.
Peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive.
So now that we know who did it, let's rewind a little bit and go back through all the murders and Ghostface attacks just so they're fresh on our minds. The movie and the killings all kick off with Casey being called by the killer, and eventually Casey is forced to play a game of horror trivia where the prize is her life and the life of her boyfriend, Football Steve. And unfortunately, Steve and her don't make it to see the sequel. The next time we see the killer, this is an attack on Sydney. She is called by the killer, then chased in her own house and contacts the police through early 90s internet chat. Billy comes in through the window and Sydney runs away from him once she suspects him of being the killer. We next hear from Ghostface once he calls Sydney while she's staying at Tatum's.
Hello, Sydney.
No!
Looks like you fingered the wrong guy. Again.
And then the next day, he attacks her in the girls' restroom. He then attacks Principal Henry, RIP to the Fonz, and follows this by stalking Sydney and Tatum around town. He is next seen attacking and killing Tatum in the garage at Stu's party. He then moves on to attacking Billy and chases Sydney through Stu's house. He almost attacks Randy, he kills Kenny, and then chases Sydney again. Then the last time we see him, he stabs Dewey and chases Sydney for a third time. Now before we move on, let's acknowledge that Ghostface has had a very busy week. With all that said, let's take all the information that we know from the attacks and look at the clues the movie laid out in front of us to solve this mystery the whole time. Let's start from the beginning, because honestly, this movie gives us a solid amount of clues to begin to narrow down the suspects. What can we tell about our killer from just this first attack?
Hello?
1. This is someone who knows Casey's phone number. This is back in the day of phone books, so I get anybody could have looked it up, but as we come to find out, both Casey and Steve are targeted specifically. 2. This is someone who knows Casey Becker's address. Now, while we can take into account this is a small town and everybody probably knows everyone, are we to assume everyone knows where everyone lives too? Casey seems to live far outside of the town, so I find that hard to believe. But even if that was the case, that still means our killer knew where Casey lived, likely perhaps because the killer also lives in the same town. Our third clue is the killer knows who Casey Becker's boyfriend is. You see, Steve wasn't randomly picked out of the crowd and dragged to Casey's back patio. He was specifically targeted and picked out. Who would know for sure if a couple at high school is going out? In most cases, it's somebody that also goes to that high school and is around to see them actually be a couple, thus strongly implying that our killer goes to high school with Casey. The fourth thing we know is our killer loves movies, and specifically scary movies.
I want to play a game.
It seems like such a trope of a villain to call out scary movies, as he himself is creating a real-life version of that, but notice this line.
It'll be fun. It's an easy category. Movie trivia.
Our villain knows movies and specifically leans into scary movies to fulfill his fantasy of creating one.
Name the killer in Halloween. No. Steve's counting on you.
The fifth thing we know is while our killer is brutal, they are also a bit amateurish. You see, Casey has plenty of moments of nearly escaping, which means the plans they have are not as airtight as they would have hoped. Lastly, we learn the killer owns black boots. Watch closely as he runs after Casey. So now we know if we see characters wearing black shoes, our red flag alert should go up immediately. In the next scene, we are introduced to a new suspect.
It's just me.
What are you doing here?
Sorry.
Why is Billy coming to her house in the middle of the night? Shouldn't he be at home playing Super Nintendo or something? Because now it makes him look so obvious. It's almost so obvious that you miss it. But just in case you needed an extra reason to think it was him, listen to this next clue.
I was home watching television. The Exorcist was on. Got me thinking of you.
We know our killer has deep knowledge of horror movies. We just found this out on his call with Casey. And I'd imagine you'd find The Exorcist in the same section you would find Halloween or Friday the 13th on Netflix or Hulu. This may seem like a small clue, but as you'll see, this comes into play a bit later. So far, based on the clues, we know Billy is already starting to fit the mold of the killer already. He's a high schooler who would likely know about Casey and Steve dating, does watch and reference scary movies, and was out at the time the murders happened. Let's keep stacking up the clues though. A few scenes later, we meet a few additional people and see Sydney's core group of friends. And this scene is littered with subtle clues like this small one.
Hun, why would they ask you if you like to hunt?
Because their bodies were gutted.
Did you catch it? Let me play it back again. But this time, notice the shoes.
Why would they ask you if you like to hunt?
Because their bodies were gutted.
We know our killer wears black boots, and even if we missed that clue before, we at least now know who owns black boots. Then there's this.
Why would they ask you if you like to hunt?
Because their bodies were gutted.
And Sydney then asked the question we're all thinking.
How do you gut someone?
You take a knife and you slit them from groin to sternum.
The fuck did you just say?
That's an interesting answer there, Stu. What else do you know?
Hey, Stu, didn't you used to date Casey?
Before she dumped him for Steve.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Then there's this.
And are the police aware that you dated the victim?
What are you saying? That I killed her? No, I didn't kill anybody.
This whole scene may as well be entitled Stu's Confession. At this point, we have a motive for Stu, a detailed description of how someone could kill someone, and of course, a matching piece of wardrobe the killer wears. Next, let's break down our second Ghostface attack. The killer calls Sydney while she's alone and then alludes again to horror movies.
Scary night, isn't it? With the murders and all, it's like right out of a horror movie or something.
And we also see again the killer wears black boots. As Sydney is contacting the cops, Billy comes in to see Sydney like the night before. And as he hugs her, a phone drops, and it's here we get 2 clues. The clues we are given is the cell phone and his boots. One is a misdirect, and the other is the one we should have noticed. See, the movie wants us to focus on the phone, but notice the shoes Billy is wearing as well. This is the second time we see his shoes, and seemingly they match the shoes we saw on the killer when Sydney was attacked, and the ones the killer wore when attacking Casey Becker. Our next clue is once Sydney is at Tatum's, she receives a call from Ghostface harassing her.
Hello, Sydney.
Now, how would the killer have Tatum's number? And how would he know Sydney is there? Unless, when we think about it logically, Tatum likely told her boyfriend, in which case we can deduce exactly who it is.
I didn't kill anybody.
Now here's the confirmation of the throwaway clue we were just given previously, because we find out Billy's phone record is clean at breakfast.
Billy was released. His cellular bill was clean. He didn't make those calls.
Thanks for that, Dewey. However, if we were only focused on the phone, we would have missed the boots. You're pretty clever, Wes. The next clue we see is a small clue in this scene.
Hey, I haven't seen Billy around. Is he really pissed?
Oh, you mean
Did you notice Stu checking his face at Tatum's locker? Why does this matter, and why is the movie showing us this? Likely because he was the one who Sydney fought back against from the night before. The next clue we get is the attack on Sydney in the bathroom, and we see very clearly, if we hadn't noticed it before, the killer dons black boots. Well, we clearly know the 2 characters who own black boots. The next we see of the killer is Principal Hembry being offed. Just as a quick side note, this wasn't supposed to happen, but was instead added at the request of Bob Weinstein, since before the addition, there had been no action or murder sequences for the last 30 minutes in the original script. Even so, there is something to be gleaned from this murder as well.
Yes.
As we can tell, this means it was someone near or on campus, someone who is quick too, likely youthful, so now this disqualifies any older characters as suspects. Now we make our way to many fans' favorite scene, Randy's breakdown. The movie's meta way of poking fun at itself, revealing how horror movies work, and in a nutshell tells us what we're about to see. Let's run through the clues hidden in these quotes.
Oh, now that's in poor taste. If you were the only suspect in a senseless bloodbath, would you be standing in the horror section?
Why would he want to kill his own girlfriend?
There's always some stupid bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend.
Well, what's his reason?
Maybe Sydney wouldn't have sex with him.
I think it's her father. Why can't they find her pops, man?
Because he's probably dead. His body will come popping up in the last reel somewhere. I'm telling you, the dad's a red herring. It's Billy.
And to top off all of this meta recap and foreshadowing, we see Billy and Stu ganging up on Randy, much like they gang up on Sydney at the end. Our next clue comes in the form of a blink and you'll miss it moment while Sydney and Tatum are shopping.
How many guys will put up with a girlfriend who's sexually anorexic? Billy and his penis don't deserve you.
I mean, we all know who that is behind the mask.
I didn't kill anybody.
The next clue comes in the form of another misdirect in the dialogue with the sheriff and Dewey.
Those calls are listed to Neil Prescott, Sydney's father. Guess what tomorrow is? The anniversary of his wife's death.
You see, this sets up Sydney's father as a red herring, and if this were an action mystery thriller movie, you would in theory find all the evidence by the middle of the movie and then spend the rest of the movie trying to find that person to bring him to justice, like for example the movie The Nice Guys. But remember, we are in a murder mystery, so when you see an obvious finger pointing to a character who has had less than a minute of screen time, you can instantly mark them off your list. Nice try, movie. Now what his suspected motivation is may bring us into a much bigger world of an important plot line we thought was small, but as it turns out is likely the core of this entire case. You see, very early on, we find out something happened to Sydney's mom. At first, we're not sure of what it is that happened. You see people around her treat it like a secret they don't want to revisit in front of her.
Dewey was saying this is the worst crime they've seen in years, even worse than, well, it's bad.
Sydney Prescott. She was daughter of,
We come to find out Sydney's mom was assaulted and murdered, and the man who did it was Cotton Weary, who is now awaiting death row. But for our sleuth Gail, she believes he was framed, and also believes the killings that are occurring are now done by the same person who framed him.
No, you saw someone leave wearing that coat. The same someone who planted it in Cotton's car, framing him. The killer's still on the loose, isn't he? Those murders are related.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Had we paid attention to Gail, we would know how big of a threat of motivation this could be for our killers. Here is also another time the movie tries to trick us. You see, by now we know our killer wears black boots, and the movie spends its time showing us the sheriff's black boots. But since we've been paying attention to this the whole time, we already know who owns black boots. So again, much like Billy's cell phone, this is yet another misdirect detail. Oh, Wes, you were very clever.
To Wes!
beautiful son of a bitch.
What happens next in Scream is so obviously a nod to classic murder mysteries, and that is the isolated location trope. Much like Agatha Christie stories like Death on the Nile or Murder on the Orient Express, all of the main characters are forced to be in one setting for some time, usually 3 days, much like Scream, and then you allow your murders to play out. The setting here is Stu's house, which again means if we see Ghostface here, then again there is a high likelihood he is one of the students. It's in this location, though, we're given so many clues that should have finally sealed the deal on who we guessed who the killer was all along. Let's start with this very subtle yet telling clue. Did you catch it? Let me play it again. Whoa, Stu, you look a bit clumsy there. Almost like... Our next clue really points the finger on who the killer could be with Tatum's murder. You see, Tatum is killed at the party, which clearly means the killer is at the party, and by our villain logic really narrows down one of the killers. I'll show you how. Let's take account of our characters. Sydney is talking with Dewey, who is showing off Gail to the rest of the party, and the movie wants to point the finger at Randy, who disappears to look for a camera to take a picture with Gail. But again, this is yet another misdirect. So who was it we should have suspected the whole time? The answer lies in this line.
Hey, grab another beer, would you?
Am I the beer wench?
You see, it was Stu who asked his girlfriend Tatum to grab another beer. He knew she would head to the garage away from everyone, and all he had to do was wait for her to make her move so he could make his. Our next clue is subtle, but see if you can catch it here. While Sydney is describing not wanting to repeat her mom's mistakes, Billy makes an interesting comment.
It's like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs when she keeps having flashbacks of her dead father.
Billy knows an awful lot about films, and if there's one thing we know about our killer, it's that he knows a lot about movie trivia as well.
I didn't kill anybody.
This leads us to another fan favorite scene, Randy's rules. The meta rules that apply to horror movies of the past and are all broken in this movie.
Number 1, you can never have sex. Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back. I'll be right back! See, you push the laws and you end up dead. Okay, I'll see you in the kitchen with a knife.
Our next misdirect clue is Sydney's father, Neil Prescott's car found in the bushes. As if the movie was trying hard enough to make us think it was him.
You know, I think it's her father. You know, why can't they find her pops, man?
When the movie is finger pointing that hard, nerd detectives, we know better. Our next clue comes within the attack on Sydney and Billy. As they are done making whoopee.
What's whoopee? What, like fucking?
How did the killer know they'd be in that room? You see, only Stu and Randy know they're both upstairs, but only Stu knows which room.
Why don't you guys go up to my parents' room? You know, you guys can talk, whatever.
Stu, by now we already know you did it. Give it up.
I didn't kill anybody.
These next 2 clues have been talked about to death, but I'll throw them in quickly. During the killer's chase with Sydney, the killer seems to know their way around the house. And also, why does this room have dolls hanging from the ceiling? Oh yeah, because it's Stu's room, and he's the killer. I mean, even notice how one is hanging eerily similar to how Casey Becker was found.
I didn't kill anybody.
Our next clue comes after Sydney is attacked by Ghostface in the police car. As soon as she escapes, she looks straight ahead and to the right. But notice the direction Stu enters from. He comes in from the left, a direction Sydney had not viewed fully. We also get a minor clue here. Listen closely to what Stu says. Wait, what did he say? Play that back, DJ. How would he know that unless, of course...
Billy, watch out!
And thus, we arrive at our last clue before the big reveal, and that is only Randy is at the door when Billy opens up. That's it, we're done. The end. Game over. Oh wait, there is, however, one more small detail. One more reoccurring clue that wraps up a trend we've seen all throughout the movie.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Anthony Perkins, Psycho.
Billy's movie references. Now, while we know Randy is the movie buff who works at the video store,
You're absolutely right. I'm the first to admit it. If this were a scary movie, I'd be the prime suspect.
when he talks about movies, it feels like the setting matches the conversation. He's in the video store discussing the slasher movie genre in a very meta way. Additionally, he's at the party talking about movies with his friends, all while trying to pick out a movie to watch, and then even gives a rule speech while him and the crew are watching Halloween. This all feels very on brand. But when Billy talks about movies, it seems like he uses them as analogies for life.
When I was home watching television, The Exorcist was on. It was edited for TV, you know, all the good stuff was cut out, and it got me thinking of us. It's like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs when she keeps having flashbacks of her dead father.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Anthony Perkins, Psycho.
As if he relates to the characters he's watching. But what if he has trouble differentiating characters in a movie from the actors in real life? For Billy, the line is blurred between entertainment and reality.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun.
In his head, the fantasy of cinema is twisted with his own real-life experiences.
Did they ever really decide why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat people? Don't think so.
The characters he sees aren't just characters, but they are real people to him, which is why he refers to them by their real names and not just their character names.
Maybe your movie-freaked mind lost its reality button. You ever think of that?
Projecting there much, Billy? You see, for Billy, it appears he thought of himself as someone who was already a character in a real-life movie.
It's all a movie. It's all one great big movie. You can't pick your genre.
But in his head, he is the villain, and the movies he absorbed gave him the additional spark he needed.
Don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
Billy felt empowered to not only pick his genre, but also continue his streak of terror for as long as he could, and this was the plan all along.
We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel!
The quotes and horror movie knowledge gave you away from day one, Billy.
Are you telling me that's not a killer?
And that, fellow detectives, are all the clues you missed from Scream 1.
Perfect ending.
How did y'all do finding the clues the first few times you watched this? And had you found all the clues I mentioned, or were there some new ones that made you want to go back and rewatch this movie again? I will say this was super fun to break down because as I found one new thing, another new thing stood out, and before I knew it, I had like 10 pages of clue notes. So for me, this was definitely the longest time I spent researching and writing on a script, so thank y'all for being patient with me as I put this out a little slower than the rest of them. I do want to say I am returning to classic murder mysteries, but I wanted to open this rabbit hole for all of my Scream fans out there, because I do plan on breaking down the rest of the movies in this franchise. Also, feel free to drop a comment and let me know any clues you think I missed, or any of your favorite quotes from this movie. Y'all know I really appreciate being able to interact with all of y'all in the comments. Also, if you have any murder mysteries classic or in the horror genre, drop them down in the comments and I'll be sure to add them to my list. Feel free to follow the channel if you're not already, and feel free to follow me on all the social medias: Money Blake Weather, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. As always, I want to thank all of y'all for checking this out, for tuning in, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is. I appreciate and love every single one of y'all. And until the next case, I will see ya. Peace.